Hello, my dear friends and my dear students. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Top Lesson for You. Dear friends, you know that we are discussing about the human skeleton, the bones of the body. To previous lecture, we discussed about the anatomy and the external features of the fibula bone. So we have covered about the bone of the hip bone we have covered. Then we covered about the bone on the femur bone. Then we discussed about the bones of the legs. Those were the tibia and fibula. We have recorded all of them, the external features of all these bones. Now we are going towards the foot, right? So this is the foot in my hand, and this is the left foot that I'm holding because this toe, the large finger, the big toe is on the medial side. So this is the foot in my hand. So in our foot, right, as you can see on the screen, I have written, we are discussing about the bones of the foot. So we hope we will discuss them in big detail, and we will see all those important features of these bones, inshallah, in all the lectures. So the first bone that we are going to discuss here is the calcaneus bone, or is also known as calcaneal bone, right? So we have it here, the calcaneus or the calcaneal bone. So my dear friends, in the foot, right, if someone asks what is calcaneus bone, so it's the largest bone of the foot, and it comes in the row of the tarsal bones, right? So as we have 7 tarsals and 5 metatarsals, and then we have the phalanx bones and the phalanges, right? So here the largest bone of the foot and the most strongest bone of the foot, that is the calcaneus bone. So we have it here, right? It makes the foot, the lower posterior part of the foot. So this is the bone which we are going to discuss about right now in our lecture here, right? So the talus bone. Our foot is made up of about 26 bones. Among them we have the 7 tarsals, the 5 metatarsals, and the 14 phalanges. That we have the phalanx bones, which will make the 5 phalanges in the foot. So let's go for the first bone that we have here. That is the calcaneus bone. My dear friends, the calcaneus bone is the bone which lies horizontally, right? As if I hold the foot in my hand, right, you can see that this bone is lying horizontally. If I put it on this book here, look carefully, this is a book in my hand. So this is your this is your foot right here. This is the foot. So the calcaneus bone is lying a little bit horizontally in the foot. It is the posterior most bone of your foot, right? About the side determination of this bone, how to determine either this calcaneus bone belongs to the left foot or the right foot. So how you should determine the sides. So I have here a separate calcaneus bone in my hand, right? Here is it. So look carefully. First of all, there are 2 surfaces which will help you in the recognition of this bone, either it is right or left bone. So look carefully. If I'm holding the bone in my hand, right, so here towards my right hand, this surface is a little bit smooth, right? You can see this is smooth surface, but if I turn it, you will see there is a concavity part, there is a concave surface. So look carefully, as I have written on the screen, you can see the lateral surface is smooth. So if someone asks you that either it is a left calcaneus bone or right calcaneus bone, for the side determination, you should remember that on the lateral side of this bone, there should be the smooth surface, and the surface which is concave, that will be medially. Okay, it shows the right and left. Then what you have to do, then the other important feature that will give you help in recognition of the side determination of this bone is that all the facets of this bone are anterior superiorly. How? Look, this is a facet which should be anteriorly, which should be kept anteriorly, this facet, right, the cuboid facet. And then there are 3 other facets in the superior part of it, right? These should be superiorly. So we say all the facets which are present in this calcaneus bone, they should be kept anterior superiorly or superior anteriorly. You will recognize the bone is left or right. That's so simple. So look, what are the points of recognition of the bone? That is, the lateral surface of this bone should be kept laterally, or we say the smooth surface should be laterally, the concave surface should be medially, all the facets which are present in this bone should be kept anterior superiorly, right? So if you see here, this is a left foot in my hand, right? You can see here the calcaneus bone, right? The smooth surface is kept laterally and the concave surface is medially, right? And all the facets of it should be superior anteriorly. So if you look at them both together, in my hand this is the right calcaneus bone, and in here this is the left calcaneus bone. So I hope you understand all these important features from which you will recognize either the bone is right or the left one. So thank you, friends. Next, here you can see here on the screen we have the calcaneus bone. I have shown that we are going to discuss right now about this bone. So this bone is studied under 6 surfaces, right? This bone has 6 surfaces: the anterior surface, the posterior surface, the dorsal or superior surface, the plantar or inferior surface, the lateral surface, and the medial surface. So let me show you all those here. There is the anterior surface. So I'm rubbing this anterior surface with my fingers, right? If you hold the bone like this, right? If you have your foot kept like this, right? Okay, this way. So that will be the anterior part and this is the posterior part, right? So I am showing to the camera the anterior part of the bone, and towards me is the posterior surface, right? So this is the posterior surface, this is the anterior surface. Okay, so how many surfaces? The anterior surface, the posterior surface. Okay, then there is a dorsal surface or superior surface, right? This is the dorsal surface of it. Then there is an inferior or plantar surface. So this is the plantar or the inferior surface. And then there is a lateral surface and a medial surface. So how many total surfaces? Anterior, dorsal, plantar, posterior, lateral, and medial surface. Right, friends? Now let's see the features which are present in the anterior surface of this bone. So this is the anterior surface. It is the smallest surface, right? This anterior surface is mostly the smallest surface of this bone. So this is the anterior surface. That's so simple, friends. Anterior surface, right? If you compare the anterior surface to the posterior surface is a little bit broader and wider, right? So look, this is the anterior surface, and this interior surface, you know, we have written here, contains a concavo-convex articular facet for the cuboid bone. So if you see here, you have the cuboid bone, this one, this is the cuboid bone, right? And this cuboid bone has made a joint here with the talar, with the calcaneus bone. So that's why it's called calcaneus cuboidal joint here, right? So we have this surface is for the cuboid bone, which will make a joint here. So the surface is a little bit convex and concave. If you look at me laterally, this is a little bit concave, but if you go medially, it shows convexity, right? So let me show you here. This surface, right, is the cuboid surface and the anterior surface, and it is a facet for the cuboid bone, right? So this facet has 2 important points. The lateral part of it is concave, but the medial part of it is a little bit convex. That's why I have written here the concavo-convex articular facet for the cuboid bone. You see here is that facet. If you follow the pointer here, this is the anterior surface of this bone, and it contains a concavo-convex articular facet for the cuboid bone. So I hope you understand this. So look here, friends, I will show you here. This is the anterior surface, or we say this anterior surface contains the articular facet for the cuboid bone. So I hope you understand about the anterior surface. Now let's go for the posterior surface. Right, the posterior surface of this bone is divided somewhat into 3 parts, right? This is the upper part, then there is a middle part, and then there is an inferior part or lower part. The upper part of this posterior surface is a little bit smooth, but the lower and middle part is not smooth. It is a little bit rough in nature. So we say the posterior surface of this bone is divided into 3 areas. You can see here in my hand I have this posterior surface. So it is divided into an upper smooth part, right? This is the upper part of this posterior surface, right friends, upper part. Then there is the middle part. You can see here, this is the middle part of this posterior surface, and my dear and near to my heart friends, there is the inferior, the lower part of it. So the posterior surface is divided into three parts, the three areas: the upper area, the middle area, and the lower area, right friends. Okay. And then there is a dorsal surface of it, or we say the superior surface, and you can see here I have drawn it in the, we have the picture of that superior surface also. Now let's see all the important features which are present in the superior or the dorsal surface of this calcaneus bone. So let's go for it. My friends, the dorsal surface is divided into exactly three areas. And what are those? There is the posterior 1/3, right? Then there is the middle 1/3, and then there is the anterior 1/3. So you can see here, this is the dorsal surface of this bone, this one, right? And it is divided into three areas. This is the posterior 1/3 of this, right? The posterior 1/3, this one. Then there is the anterior middle 1/3, and then there is the anterior 1/3 of this area of this bone. So this is the, this will be here, you can see in the camera, the anterior 1/3, right? And then this is the middle 1/3, and this is the posterior 1/3. So I hope the posterior 1/3 shows a little bit roughness. So here we have it, and yes, we know that the posterior 1/3 is a little bit rough in nature, so it contains a rough part. This one, this is called the posterior 1/3. Then the middle 1/3 of this dorsal surface of the calcaneus bone has an oval, convex and oblique facet for the inferior talar facet. So here we have the talus bone, and this is the inferior talar facet, right? This facet will make a joint here like this. Look carefully. Oh, I'm sorry friends. Here is the talus bone, and this is the calcaneus bone. So this middle 1/3 of this calcaneus bone has a facet which is for the inferior facet of the talar bone. So look here, like this, right friends, if you understand it. This. So here is the middle, we say the middle 1/3 has a facet which is for the talar facet, the inferior talar facet, and they make the subtalar joint here, subtalar joint here. So this, look carefully, here we have the subtalar joint, here the subtalar joint. So okay, so the middle 1/3 has we have written here, it's an oval and convex oblique facet for the inferior talar facet. Then there is the anterior 1/3, right? If you talk about the anterior 1/3 of this bone, right, this is whole anterior 1/3 of this calcaneus bones, which I haven't shared it right now. Okay, look carefully. The interior 1/3, if you look medially, it has the articular facets. If you look medially like this, it's divided into a medial part and a lateral part. I've written here anterior laterally it is non-articular, right? Anterior laterally it is non-articular, but anterior medially it contains articular facets. So we have written here anterior medially it is articular. Why? Because it makes articulations with this talus bone. So you can see here the facets of the talar bone or the talus bone will make joint here, and they will articulate here. But if you see here in the lateral part of it, there are no facets, there are no articulations, special articulations here. So we say the calcaneus bone, anterior 1/3 of it is divided into a lateral non-articular part and a medial articular part. So I have written on the screen, you can see also. Okay, so what are these facets? There is an anterior facet. So let me share it here. This is the anterior facet, right? You can see here anterior facet. Then there is an elongated middle facet, right? So this is an elongated middle facet, right? And then we should not forget we have an large talar facet. So there is a large talar facet also. So this is about the anterior surface or the dorsal surface of this calcaneus bone. So what are those important points about the dorsal surface is that first of all it is divided into three areas. What are those? The posterior 1/3, the middle 1/3, and the anterior 1/3. The posterior 1/3 you can see on the screen is a rough part. The middle 1/3 has an oval oblique facet for the inferior facet of the talar bone. Then the anterior 1/3 is divided into a non-articular part and an articular part, right? The non-articular part is laterally, but the articular part is medially, and it contains an interior facet and an elongated middle facet it has, right? So this was the features in the dorsal surface. Now let's go for the plantar surface of this bone, or this plantar surface is also known as the inferior surface. So you can see the big difference between these two surfaces. This is the anterior surface or dorsal surface, I'm sorry, or superior surface, and this is the plantar surface or the inferior surface. Now look carefully. The plantar surface of this bone or the inferior surface a little bit rough in nature. You can see these are some of the roughnesses here. You can see. Now let me point out all these important features. First, there is a roughness in the inferior surface. Then there is the calcaneal tuberosities, right? Now you can see here are the three tuberosities which are present. Here is a tuberosity, right? Here is a tuberosity, and here is another tuberosity. So we say there are three tubercles or tuberosities there. And what are those? There is an anterior tuberosity, right? This is the interior, this is the medial, and this is the lateral. That's so simple. The anterior tuberosity or the tubercle, right? We have here anterior, then there is the lateral tubercle, and then there is the medial tubercle, you can see here. And then there are two processes there, my dear friends. Look carefully. Here is one process and here is other process. And what are these processes called? That is the lateral process and the medial process. That's so simple. So you can see I have shown them the lateral process and the medial process. If you can see right clean in the camera. Right? Okay. Then there is a groove part which is present there, and this is the groove which is there. Right? The groove. That's so simple, friends. Okay. So what did we say? We said that the plantar surface or the dorsal surface is rough. It has calcaneal tuberosities or three tubercles there. Right? The medial tubercle, the lateral tubercle, the interior tubercle, and then there are two processes in that. This is the lateral process, this is the medial process, and in between the two posterior tubercles, right? These are the posterior tubercles to the lateral medial. There is a groove part there, and that is called the groove of the plantar surface of this calcaneus bone. I hope you understand, my friends, right? Okay, let's move forward. There is a lateral surface. Okay, we have this lateral surface of this bone. Done. This is the lateral surface. The lateral surface is a little bit flat in nature, so we know this is flat. And then there is a peroneal trochlea or a tubercle there in the rough surface. So yes, we have it here. This is a tubercle here present, right? Okay, so this is the tubercle which is present here, or it is also known as the peroneal trochlea or the tubercle. So the lateral surface a little bit rough in nature. Next, the last one, you can see here, this is the lateral surface, so it has a tubercle, nothing else. There is a medial surface, and let's see for the medial surface. Medial surface is concave. We know here is the depressed part. This is the concave surface. It contains the susteniculum tali, or we call it the shelf. So you can see in the image here, this is the susteniculum tali there, and then there is the calcaneal groove there. So look carefully. This part, you can see here, this part has come out a little bit medially, right? So this part which I'm holding in my hand, this is called the sustentaculum tali, which is projection, which is the outward growth of this bone, right, the medially. And then below that, this sustentaculum tali, there is a groove here which is called the calcaneal groove. So we said this is the sustentaculum tali, you can see here, and then there is a groove in it. So this is the groove. That's so simple. Okay, this is the medial surface of this bone, right? So, and we finish here with the calcaneus bone. So my friends, I hope you understand it. Let's firstly repeat and let's firstly recap. Calcaneus bone is the largest bone of your foot, right? And it's also known as calcaneum. It is lying horizontally. How to determine the sides? The lateral side is smooth, the medial side is concave. All the articular facets which are present in it should be anterior superiorly. You will recognize easily either this left bone or right. Right, and external features about it, we discuss it under sex titles, and these are all the surfaces: the interior surface, posterior surface, dorsal surface, plantar surface, and lateral and medial surface. And these are some important features that I told you about all these surfaces of this bone. So my dear friends, this was about the calcaneus bone. I hope you understand all the important external features of it. As you know, friends, we are just discussing about the external features of these bones, not about any attachment of it, because the attachments of all these bones I will discuss in the section while I will start about the muscular system, inshallah, in the next coming lecture. So friends, this was about calcaneus bone. In the next lecture we will discuss about the talus bone and its external features. So I hope you like the lecture. See you guys in the next lecture. Till then, my friends, Allah Hafiz.